is Kylara, and I am here with Action Kermit today to host the group discussion about the foods of In-World. We will be covering topics including our favorite scenes, how food ties into cultures and skills, and various other related theories. We're going to start our discussion at Lascore's famous Wandering Inn with Erin's rather inventive cooking. What is everyone's favorite Erin-related introduction of a dish? Anything you want, Eartha-related, or any of her other crazy food inventions?
Yeah, this is sort of getting into a thing that we're going to discuss later, but I just love the whole concept behind Wondrous Fair. Like when Erin first got the skill, that was one of the best, really magical feeling moments of the story.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wondrous Fair is a lot of fun because it can do anything, and hopefully we'll see some more of that in the future. I like the hamburger stall scene. I think that's a little bit different just because we don't often see Erin do stuff outside of her inn that's food related.
Yeah, the constant back and forth with the food thieves is hilarious too.
Yeah, and Amani sort of tries to head them off with selling the recipes, which is an interesting idea. Do we have any thoughts, guys, and reactions and comments?
So it doesn't look like anyone's written anything so far on that.
Do you want to
No,
talk?
Sonic Spanner is writing, and so is a shock. Okay, so Edge Dancer says, I thought Erin's food diplomacy with Palace is a great scene. Maybe not the most inventive food, but a great use of it. Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Yes, she uses cookies to bribe the gate guards kind of a lot, which is surprisingly successful.
Let's see. Shining Spanner says the Shadow Bread is an awesome, interesting view. Yeah, that's very atmospheric. And Ashok says that I love the curries, especially the scene when she used her curry as a weapons against Monster Team. Yeah, that was laugh out loud funny.
Yes.
I don't remember the name of the Drake
I'm
that she used it
waiting
on.
for a skill that Erin might get. You know how like Laken can find gold because he's a king, so on his domain he can find like jewels and gems and gold. So I'm waiting for a skill which Erin can get, where in her kitchen she can find like rare ingredients, like earth ingredients that she won't be able to find in In-World otherwise,
Or just
like maybe chocolate
cocktail.
chips or edamame or something like that, wasabi, something like that.
A skill kind of like Kelessen's spice skill would be very good for any earther who does cooking, I think, where they could summon ingredients that they can't find in small amounts.
Mhm.
Something I want to bring up is an old scene from volume 4 when Erin makes food for two undead, for Ivjani and for Ventura, and she sits there and she shows what I think is a sense of or as an innkeeper, what would make my guests happy, where she is able to decide this is not a food that will make this is the food that will make them happy, and no matter, and even if she adds poison or whatever, anything disgusting, it still tells her this will make my they will not care, this will make my guests happy. It was an interesting scene for something that doesn't seem to come from our skills rather than our class, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shining Spanner, you had a comment?
Yeah, building on what Edge Dancer said before, and you said about bribing the palace guards with cookies and that. She actually does a really cool thing when, like, using the door to introduce Lascore and Palace together.
Mm.
Palace is like, oh yeah, we've got all this cool stuff. We've got 1,000,000 bathhouses. We've got this, that, and the other. And then Erin's like, yeah, we got hamburgers though. So, and then Palace gets in on it, and that's what really opens up the intercity travel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great use of food diplomacy there.
Yeah, and I think it's something real in that people will travel to try new foods and do a lot of those kinds of things.
Yeah, so Solascriber says that Erin and Maviola using the fancy pizza with gold shavings to throw a party was a great time. Yeah, that was Maviola's ability to do a high society function on a budget was a sight to see. So, Oshi, you had a comment?
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Oshi.
Okay,
Hope you feel
I'm
better
not.
soon.
Yeah, I just wanted to relay a message from Lynette and say hi from Lynette and hi from me. And I'm sorry I missed out on all of this. Okay, that was way too dramatic. I did want.
Oshi.
I just wanted to mention the.
Don't die,
I hope you
Oshi.
guys have a conversation about how Pirateaba both resists the inclusion of food in the story and at the same time sort of understands its importance because you need some medium that's fun to relay the kind of diplomatic and soft power stuff that Erin represents, and food is that soft power. And for her, it isn't. She isn't great at food, but she
She
knows.
microwaves bagel toast.
Yeah, she makes me cry inside because Pirate likes to torture me with terrible food. But just the actionable use of food, not just recipes and things, but the idea that food is something we come together to like to do. For most species, it becomes a not to be too reductive, but humanizes the Antinium. It connects the scorer to the outside world. It makes them think about themselves with pride, and in the process, think that if food can work, what else can work? Okay, I'm gonna go. Enjoy yourselves, guys. Bye.
All right, rest up well, Oshi. Hope you feel better soon.
Feel better. Okay.
Okay, so
We will try to tie some of that in. I think we have some of it covered in the upcoming questions, and we've talked about a little bit of it already with how Erin, often her introductions of food are in some ways diplomatically related, whether that's extending friendship to a species or trying to bring cities together and create ties there. She uses food as a tool to create bonds between people. What else do we have for comments?
Okay, so Solascriber says that Erin making food for the necromancer to oust them was an incredibly clever time. Yeah, that was probably my second favorite food moment in all of Wandering In after when Erin first got the skill. That was just such a pro gamer move. Exploiting what Wondrous Fair was capable of. Okay, so Kalmia said that they like the flies and honey, something that the Antinium in particular would enjoy, people who have been largely overlooked as citizens and who generally don't enjoy the food they eat in the hive anyway. Seemed like a very Erin thing to do. And yeah, that's absolutely right as well. Just expanding all the Antinium offerings. That actually led to the whole, rumors that other innkeepers tried to spread about how she was serving Creelers for breakfast in nonsense. But it was just great to see, Erin really trying to integrate with the environment like that.
And yes, she could make it for Fedahep, and I think he would probably really enjoy that because he isn't capable of eating a lot. We're gonna move on to the next question, which is still Erin related, and that is in Volume 2, Erin gains the green skill Wondrous Fair. How do you think this will play into any future class changes? What do you guys want to see her do with it next? What do we need to see on page?
Okay, so Shining Spanner has a comment.
I think Wondrous Fair actually helped her gain the Magical Innkeeper class in the first place. But now she's actually looking into the skill and figuring out what it does. I think it'll allow her to become a lot more diverse in what she makes, especially now she knows it's thematic in nature. So it'll be interesting to see what she comes up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have some things to say about it, but it's tied up in a question that I added later. So Ashok says that she was trying to create something that could hide her from the gods, like the shadow, and it looks like she may be needing that again soon. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Hopefully it'll succeed this time.
I think that's something that could be a powerful weapon there. She's sort of experimented with boosting foods for adventurers anyways, with strength soup and things like that. And she could definitely expand her offerings as needed.
Okay, so it looks like Kenyon and Solar Scriber are both writing something, but they haven't finished their questions yet. Okay, Kenyon says, I would like to see it eventually return to more magical foods. With all the connections that have been made in Volume 8, it would be so much easier to locate more rare ingredients like ashwheat flour for the shadow. Yeah, also, more culturally relevant, story-based, foods from all the places that Erin's friends have been would be interesting to explore as well. So, Shining Spanner has something else to say?
Yeah, just thinking on it, now that ethereal ingredients are known to be a thing, it'd be interesting to see if Erin does get fully revived, whether she starts making food for everyone in the Deadlands, maybe. Because the potion that the Goblin Witch, can't remember her name, made initially said, oh yeah, it was dead important back in the day, but now there's less people over there. Can't do a lot with it, but Erin might be able to change that.
Yeah, and I think the goblins also had something like that going too in that one ghostly hand tribe that we saw. So Solar Scriber had another comment. Not sure if this is a question already, but there's a discussion of the difference between Erin's wondrous fare and the witches and their custom brews. So Wiskeria and the soup that was spilled by a grumpy person. Yes, that's a good point. I actually added that as a question myself somewhere down the line. I think that's question number 10 under Food No Moments that we're going to be getting to. So, yeah, that's absolutely right. I think it's going to have a lot of synergy there.
And I know that some people have also theorized that we will see Erin take some type of witch class or something like that because of the similarities between skills. Alright, related to Erin's magical food, Erin is, as we've discussed today, capable of feeding the undead food that they enjoy. Could she sustain the gods on something besides souls? And if she can, have we seen any evidence that she should for any of them?
I don't know. That it's like souls is also a very something that they are eating because they don't have pure belief. Could they? And they are eating them in a lot and still starving. I don't know if it will be. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction to that. Shining Spanner wants to say something?
I feel like I'm talking too much here. Yeah, so Erin obviously fed the gods at the winter solstice. We all know about that, and it went well. That's where she got the coin. I'm thinking potentially, because as you say, the souls are what are giving the gods power. Maybe she could do something with porn in terms of making religious food, because he can make the magic bread, or not magic bread, but like holy bread, whatever. And whether she might be able to tie something in that way.
Yeah, that does sound like an interesting idea. There's sacred feasts are a very common theme in religion everywhere. So it would be interesting to see if there's some in-world logic about how that would work to sustain the gods. So Sola Scriber is asking, is it something to sustain them or something to make them enjoy? Fedo Happen is ghost drink and Ivjani and the bone meat. Both undead don't need food, but so it may not imply that they give sustenance. Yeah, that's also true. There may be something more abstract that they get out of it, though. Maybe not even like mana or something, but maybe something to help keep the undead from deteriorating, like hold their patterns together. I don't know. It's an open question.
Yeah, that I mean the holy food idea is very interesting, and we definitely might see that. Maybe it's even part of a priest class if we do see the gods come back. That could already be a function, which would be very interesting. And yes, we don't know if it sustains it, but maybe it's a strength thing. Like if you can eat it, it makes you stronger somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pat has another comment. They say that we've also seen that the gods have a need for physical food, since Tamaroth was very hungry for normal food when we saw him with Lakin. Like he was trying to get Lakin to go get him a sandwich from the market in exchange for a skill. So I have to wonder if there's some kind of symbolic meaning of that feeding a god has, and then they mainly eat the significance of the act of giving something.
It may also just be the significance of doing something specifically for them, and asking somebody to buy you a snack is a fairly low ask for most people. So he may have just been hoping, that makes me seem like a normal person, and we'll see if it works. But yes, it could also be need for physical food, which would be interesting. All right, do you guys have any more thoughts on this question? Otherwise, we're going to move on to our menu artwork. The pirate has commissioned Enuryn to make a Wandering Inn menu. This can be seen in chapter 8.15. It includes foods that we've seen on page. It includes some foods that were made up specifically for the project. So for everybody listening, some things that are on there, we've got onion rings, we have silcap, which is a Nolish dish. We've got all kinds of vegetables and local flavors. There's shield spider succulents, fried bees for the Antinium, things like that. So related to the menu, what would you guys be willing to eat? What would you maybe change on Erin's menu? What would you want to add that we haven't seen yet in InWorld?
Vegetarian stuff.
This is I agree. We haven't seen a ton of vegetarian dishes. We've seen more since Amani took over cooking at the Wandering Inn. It would be fun to see more.
I would like to see Erin try making cricket tacos, because that's an actual thing. The Antinium might enjoy it, but people eat that in the real world too.
Somebody tried to say something. Do you want to repeat that? Okay. I am interested to see how the food menu does change once Erin gets back. I mean, they've been able to expand it a lot because of her preservation skills, so they can have a very wide range of available dishes. And I do hope we see Erin make some more species-specific foods. She has quite a bit. But it would be interesting to see what else she can come up with based on their suggestions, too. She mostly does stuff off the cuff on what she thinks they'll like. But as people feel more comfortable, hopefully we'll see them start making some requests.
Has she made marshmallows yet?
I do not believe
'Cause
we've
you-
seen marshmallows.
Right? You just said summer and it sounded like s'mores. And that's such a good travel food. Like, somebody's camping out in the blood fields or something. It's not meat, so there's no blood anywhere, and it's tasty as fuck.
We have not seen marshmallows. I just ran a very quick search.
Are they easy to make? Like in world, would they be viable?
They're fairly easy to make. You have to heat everything, and you could probably make marshmallows. I think cornstarch is involved. Copious amounts of sugar.
Okay, so we have a comment here from a shock saying some interesting options on the menu would be steamed ginger pudding for breakfast, and butter spice tea sounds really nice too. So yeah, it is a pretty experimental menu in some ways.
Yeah. All right. So we've pretty thoroughly covered some of the foods that we've seen at the Wandering Inn. So we're going to move on, guys, to other food moments and skills and such we've seen throughout the Wandering Inn. Okay. We have one or two last comments. We'll read those.
Yeah, so Shining Spanner says the Adventurer's Graveyard is basically a mixed grill, all about that. And Yaf Ketchum is seconding the importance of butter spice tea. I might actually have to try that now if people are recommending it.
All right, we're going to go straight from marshmallows to more disgusting things. So we've seen that in InWorld, what you eat can fundamentally change who you are. The florist gains a horror rank from consuming rotting corpses, and those who eat the meat of Actelios Solash are bound to the city and gain specific classes and skills. Could you forcibly alter animals through similar diets? Or other thoughts on how eating things changes your classes?
Yep, so
We've already seen that in the blood fields, right? The whole ecosystem grew out of eating blood, which was shed through multiple wars that happened over there.
This is true. Yes, that is a good point.
Yep, so Shining Spanner has a comment?
Yeah, so I don't think eating/feeding animals would necessarily give a horror rank in the same way that you don't get a horror rank for eating rock crab or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I think it's more to do with the sentience of the being, which is why I find it fairly interesting that goblins don't get one because they have to eat their own dead on occasion, and why people aren't getting one in Rhea for eating the demons because they're basically just another people.
Antenium too, right? Like the aberrations would just be mixed back into the aberrations and the other Antenium that don't completely form in the sacs. I think they're just mixed back into the nutritious paste.
Yeah, they do recycle the Antinium. Please drop a tag in the reaction and comments so we can just tag you to speak. Shining Spanner, were you done?
Yeah, sorry.
Yep. So Ashok is asking, has it explicitly been said somewhere, eating demons? And yeah, there's that guy. I don't remember his name offhand, but he's the one who farms all the sage's grass over in, Kellum. He's the former pirate guy, and he talked about a class in the Blighted Kingdom called Flesh Reapers, who are supposed to gain a measure of the power of the demons whose bodies they eat. It was originally inspired by Actelios Slash, but we don't know how much of a connection to Tomb Home they still have. Yeah, Wayland Strongheart, that's it.
Yeah, we have seen it on page as well, very briefly in Rear. People standing around eating something, and somebody specifically says that they're flesh reapers and not to go eat that.
Yep, so nobody posted the quote, and Shining Spanner just pointed out that the guy's name is Wayland Strongheart, which I forgot, so that's good. And yeah, it does sound like a horror class to me too, but they might have strange ideas about what's proper behavior, and that may influence whether it counts as a red class.
Yeah, I think we have seen Shining Spanner sort of said that perception does influence your chances of being changed by what you eat, which I think is why it doesn't typically apply to goblins and Antinium, because for them it's sort of blasé. It's what you do, you have to survive it. But for the florist, there's an amount of horror and revulsion because she feels like she has to eat corpses to survive, and so that influences the consequences. Okay, so related to eating dead things that may change your class, we have a question on Dragonflesh. So the quote is, "The flesh of Actelios Solash does not rot, but then neither does Dragonflesh," end quote. Bones of dragons, we know, were used to construct the walled cities. What do we think happened to the bodies? Were they eaten? What might be the potential consequences of doing that?
I could see them using the scales to make armor or something like that. There's that Asmoari tribe among them, Gnolls, who were very pragmatic about taking every piece of dragon that they could get and turning it into something. So, yeah, I'm not sure if a dragon would really corrupt someone the way Actelios does, because it seems like Actelios Salash is a more malevolent and subversive being by its very nature. But it wouldn't surprise me if there was some kind of effect.
Yash Ketchum says old blood traits, ? Yeah, I think that is possibly a valid reason that we could have old blood drakes if somebody at some point did, because we've sort of seen classes where they make you more like it by eating it, like the flesh reapers in Rear become a little bit more like demons by eating their flesh, and so maybe that's how that sort of originated. What else do we have for comments?
Let's see. Oshi posted this in general, but he said the idea that food brings humans together is peak Erin energy.
Yes. Soulscriber has... I could see them possibly using them, that's the dead dragons, to make potions. Yeah, they're probably pretty alchemically powerful. We have seen that one ring made from the hide of some as yet undefined beast.
Yeah, and Ashok just pointed out that worms are cannibals too, and it doesn't seem to affect them. So maybe if it's like part of their biological expectations, it doesn't have that effect. It's like blood classes or red classes are the result of some kind of transgression.
Shining Spanner adds to that the worms don't level, so that could also be a reason that it doesn't affect them, which is possible if we're saying the same thing about animals not being affected the same way.
So Yash Ketchum says that meat isn't the only animal byproduct. There's food and other unmentionables and nails and so on. So I don't know. The more you think about it, the more you think of possible uses for things. I mean, blood I could see being used in a potion. Jeez, it's like, how resourceful could an alchemist be? I guess it depends on the one.
We have a slight correction on the Flesh Reapers in Rear. They do also eat Actelios / meat, it looks like, based on a quote from chapter 7.34c. But yeah, I mean, I think something happened to the bodies, and maybe they were eaten for the old bloods. That's a good theory. Maybe they were alchemically used or eaten by their members of their own race. Okay. All right, we're gonna skip to happier things slightly.
Wait. If we're talking about eating people, then we gotta mention honorary mention Relk and Drakes and Gnolls as one as a few of our older mentions are Relk mentioning he ate drowned people, and Gnolls that every time that someone gets in their way, they push to eat them. We see them call to eat Leonette and to eat Calrose on both occasions. But that seems normalized. Normalized. They don't seem. It doesn't seem to them like something weird. Eating their enemy, not too much.
Yeah, it seems that Erin is kind of surrounded by people who have a sort of laid back attitude towards eating intelligent beings. Don't know what that says exactly, but it's got to contribute to some odd notions.
I think that's another argument for that it doesn't necessarily have to affect your class or how you view yourself, right? But so perception may be everything. Somebody also, we've got a comment. What could the eyes have been used for on the dragons? Shock says, wow, I had completely forgotten that the gnolls wanted to eat Lionette.
Yeah, Shining Spanner pointed out that the zombie drakes in the Wiskeria dungeon are all old-blooded too. So I think we don't really know what makes an old blood. I thought they were sort of made by dragons originally, and then the old blood traits waned over time as a semi-random process.
I think that's the current theory that we do have some supporting evidence for, but maybe there's something else. I guess we'll find out someday, maybe.
Yep. So Yash Ketchum wanted to say something.
So it seems like beings with no levels can eat leveled beings to gain levels. So does that work the opposite way as well? Like if you eat something without levels, you get the strength of that being without really affecting your levels.
Kind of like the opposite of what the vampires do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Yash Ketchum was also saying earlier that the Raskar eat Gnoll hearts to get smart. So there may be some cultural component in what's possible to obtain by eating some kind of being, whether it's a monster or an intelligent being.
Yes. Okay, we've also got a comment, skipping back up, we're going to catch up on the comments real fast, guys. Edge Dancer says, speaking of eating people, do we want to discuss the chapter where Luan ran into lizard people in a famine? It seemed like they were desperate enough. Not sure if they gained red classes, though. They definitely ate each other, but we don't know about the consequences afterwards. Solo Scriber says, oh yeah, the fact that Raskar eat gnolls for intelligence, which Yash Ketchum agreed with. And Soul Scriber says they don't have classes, specifically referring to the Raskar. Just like vampires and drinking blood. Again, they eat gnoll hearts to be smart, which is Yash Ketchum's comment. It's definitely a big boost. Oh.
Yep, so Yash Ketchum is pointing out what's the demarcation line between intelligent and not. the potion slime was intended to be non-intelligent, but it got personality.
Yeah, we don't know because obviously people eat lots of other intelligent creatures as like standard fare, animals and so on, but clearly we haven't seen any direct side effects from that. Maybe there's consequences if you have a vegetarian class or something. That could be interesting.
Kamiya said that if someone slipped the remains of a person into their food without telling them, hypothetically, they would really hope they would not get a red class from it. So intention should have some part to play. Yeah, that would make it more fair. And, red classes do seem to be kind of about punishing people for transgressions. So, maybe it would have more of an impact if it was intentional.
There's a quote posted by Shining Spanner. The relevant bit on Old Blood Drakes is, they had more of their ancestors' blood in their veins. These drakes, Osthia included, remembered a part of what it was like to be a dragon, end quote.
Yep, so yeah, Ketchum, you wanted to say something else?
Yes, I actually forgot. I'll remember.
Okay, I think we're going to slide on to the next question, which is a little bit lighter. Let's read nobody's comment, and I'll paste the question over. Nobody says, that might be more about how you react if you discover that you ate a person. I think if you never discovered it, it would have no effect. So again, perception tying into the consequences of knowingly eating a thinking, leveling being. All right, our next question, we are hopping over to Laros and the Forgotten Wing Company. Foliana is rather famous because she eats the favorite food of her next target and is able to experience moments of their lives. Pirate has said, quote, Foliana might have a class that has to do with eating, or had, end quote. What was it? What are your guys' thoughts on how she gained that ability and how she uses it?
Yep, before we move on, Yesh Ketchum just remembered what they were going to say.
Okay, so I think we were talking about red classes and what the intentions behind eating are. So if a monk, for example, gives up meat, right, to gain skills, then breaking that vow or eating meat might result in him losing those skills or losing that class because he made a bargain of sorts. I don't know. I'm trying to think of classes where eating something is detrimental to that class, but something very common, not intelligent or something very common.
I think if you made a vow and it resulted in changed skills, yeah, I would think you would probably lose it if you break the vow or have other consequences.
Mm-hmm. So, jumping back to Foliana's question, Ashok is saying that they love Foliana's skill that lets her see through the eyes of her victim while eating their favorite food. It's such a creative, interesting skill. Yeah, I love the sort of niche ways that the skill system innovates constantly.
Shining Spanner speculates that the class could have been Clairvoyant Glutton, which is hilarious. She is constantly eating something. And in some ways, it's a little bit of a spin on like a much more high-powered version of Erin's sort of ability as an innkeeper to sort of sense what foods would work for people. Somehow she finds out what people's favorite foods are. No idea how she does that, but and she uses them to see what they've done, which is a very
solve crimes
skill. Yeah, it's like a solve crime skill. It's great. Okay, we have some more people typing.
Yep, so Yash Ketchum says, if she eats something Erin likes, will she be able to predict whether she'll be alive or remain deadish? Yeah, that would be an interesting question. What if Foliana eats one of Erin's favorite foods and then finds out what's happening in the Deadlands?
And related to Foliana eating something to find people, Niers is missing. While they've used the chessboard to communicate a little bit, can she use her food skill to follow Niers' progress in Israel, and do we think she has?
She's been eating something at those meetings, and I don't remember what it was or whose favorite it was, but she's keeping tabs on someone. Yeah, so Shining Spanner, you had something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say what Calmina said. She has tried, but he's range. I was going to try and find the quote, but somebody else has backed me up on that being a thing already. But it is a cool skill.
Do you guys remember if that was a quote or was like a thought in her head? Just because I know they've lied about her food skill to people before. It's probably
It
a
is
thought in her head.
one of the chapters. I will try and find a relevant quote.
Looks like Calmia has got it. Magical pork was Nir's favorite, but he was out of range. And it's a thought in Foliana's head, so we know it's accurate. Perfect. They lied. Ashok asks what was the lie, and he lies. Nir's lies about Foliana's skill. Peckler M when he asks what it does. He specifically tells him that it's basically a psychological fake out. Like eat somebody's favorite food to put everybody on edge and make it harder for herself.
Yeah, that was pretty cagey, feeding misinformation to Pickler, and maybe she knew he was up to something.
I'd imagine that skill is so powerful that you probably keep the intimidation tactics may be part of it. It could even play into how the skill works, but I'd imagine you just don't want anybody to actually know how it works exactly. If people knew for sure that their favorite food, let her see inside your head, they'd probably be a lot more cagey about what they eat. If they think it's just a signal that she's coming for you, you might actually want people to know what your favorite food is, because then you have a heads up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Shining Spanner says that he doesn't think it's a lie or a fake out. It's using an intimidation tactics to big it up, which is fair. I mean, we know the secret about what Foliana's skill does, but very, very few other people do it. I don't think she's even told Niers about it. So, yes, Ketchum also pointed out that Perorn and Prelin sound awfully similar. So, any excuse to bring Prelins back into the story is all right by me.
Yes, more inverse foods, more inverse specific foods. Those are always fun. All right, it looks like we've pretty much answered that question. So we're going to hop now back across to Israel and River Farm. I'll see if we can slide that in somewhere, Solo Scriber. We have a tea witch in River Farm. Eloise do Havin, and that's an interesting class because it's sort of food adjacent, where like it's not specific. We don't exactly know what it does. It doesn't involve growing food. It doesn't involve may involve specifically cooking food. It may just involve serving it to people. So what do we think about what her class could do? So where does she source her teas? What kind of fun teas might we see? She's got to have a pretty big repertoire.
Yeah, that's such a cool class in terms of soft power capabilities. I'd love to know more about what Eloise is up to, but she hasn't had the spotlight much.
And it's a pivot from Lady, from what I understand. So that's also kind of fun and interesting.
So, Solo Scriber also had a question. Speaking of people with eating skills, should we discuss how Snapjaw was eating metal and such?
Yeah, the goblins eat anything. Not sure how nutritious that is, but her class seems to be partially based on constantly eating something. It would be interesting if she gains different stuff from different food sources. All right, back to the tea witch, guys.
Yeah, Yash Ketchum just brought up society foods, and then Magnolia Reinhardt crossed with sugar. That's a good point. Magnolia might have some secret reason in her classes for eating as much sweet stuff as she does. And, Ressa likes to chastise her for it, but there could be deeper meaning there.
Yeah, I believe Magnolia specific. We don't know what it is, but I believe there's been reference on the page to it not affecting her. Like she says something, so she may have some type of anti-sugar skill or something. Yash Ketchum also says that the Mag's time sugar might parallel the T and Eloise, and almost witchy. Yeah, Meg. I mean, that would be interesting if ladies sort of have food-related skills already, and Eloise pivots when she sort of becomes a witch.
Yeah, so Sola Scriber says that they second that memory of a mention where she seemed to have a counter skill so that she wouldn't gain weight or had negative consequences from eating so much sugar.
I'm totally jealous.
And Kamiya asked, do we see anything with Eloise in the tea leaves for fortune telling? I vaguely remember that when they were trying to figure out what the cure should be for Tyrion Veltris's kids.
Oh, we might have seen that. I don't. We would need a quote though, but somebody can probably find that if we need it. We've got a few more comments on this one. And then we're probably going to speed it up a little bit because I know we're going to start running kind of long.
Yeah, we're about halfway through the questions here, and we're almost an hour in on the discussion.
Yeah, so I know we want to do some free discussion, so we will speed it up a little bit following this one.
Yeah, Shining Spanner says that Pride has the type of skill with embarrassment as well, not for food, but relevant to the lady class.
Yeah, Pride also has something that like does compacted muscle or something. Some lady's image. So maybe their food skills are also tied into image skills. Okay. We talked about this briefly, but let's touch on it again. We've discussed Erin's Wondrous Fair skill, and we've seen something similar in River Farm. So when Wiskeria created the grief soup for River Farm after fighting the Flooded Waters tribe, it was noted that witches also add no special ingredients to their magical dishes. They also complain that their class has not kept up with advancements in alchemy, so they have started to fade in relevance. Is there a chance that Erin's Wondrous Fair skill could contribute to a renaissance in witch cooking?
Yep, that was my question, and I will be super excited to see if that happens.
I think it might. I mean, it's got to be a teachable skill. Witches seem to operate a lot on gut instinct when they make their dishes, and that's what Erin does when she does magical dishes.
Yep, so Shining Spanner?
Well, it's Wondrous Fair will definitely be a teachable skill because Bellavia got immortal moments, and Erin we saw was the first one to get that. That was a unique skill created by her for her. After that, though, excuse me. Yeah, it's a very witchy thing, and we notice that the goblins say that going back to the ethereal food before, it used to be a bigger thing in the past, which is why witchcraft has actually gone down a bit because they communed with the other side. With Erin having that link now and being taught by the witches, I think it'll definitely key into it. Whether she gets a witch class or not is immaterial at this point. Honestly, it's more a case of she's doing witchy things. She uses headology really well to steal a phrase from Terry Pratchett.
Yeah, so Yash Ketchum just asked whether we've seen Bellavia or eat anything. She had some like really dusty snacks in her pocket that she tried to give to Ursha, but I don't think we've ever actually seen her do it.
She also sits down with Eloise and some of the other witches for like a tea party. I don't know if she directly participates though, but like she sits there. So maybe she ate a biscuit or something.
Yeah, and didn't Wiskeria bake her a cake or something? I'm not sure what she did with it, but that was something at least Dell wanted.
Wiskeria tries so hard. Okay, we have a few people typing.
Yep, so Shining Spanner says that she did, but that was to stop her from going after Mersha, not that it actually stopped Belle from going after Mersha because she just can't help herself. I think it's funny that Belle seems to have fixed on Mersha as being her arch nemesis when my guess is that it was actually Erin's protections that were saving Mersha from all that stuff.
Oh, it definitely was. At least in part. I mean, Mersha's interesting, but without the garden, it would probably without the fire and stuff like that, like she would not have worked. Okay, we have some other comments. Kel says Wondrous Fair has crossover with witch things in that it's more about theme than edibility. I don't know if it's teachable.
Yep, so Yash Ketchum says that maybe food is bad for her, so Erin's food may end up killing her. From my own speculation, we know that the Bellavia that most people see is like a construct of illusions and space magic and undeath somehow. and that the real Belavier looks a lot younger and is hidden inside like a ring of runes in a timeless moment. So it might not actually do anything for this automaton that Belavier made to face the world to eat something. And the real Belle is like stopped. So I think that's an interesting theme. Is that the Spider of Lives is all about the connections between people, but she has so many layers of protection, and every one just isolates her from the world more.
Okay. Shining Spanner says the cake was supposed to be made with love, specifically as part of the deal, which is an interesting concept because it's specified, and that without Shrek on the computer, Mersha was doomed. Yes, I think all those things are true. All right, we're going to skip to the next question. We're going to kind of move on, and then, because I want to squeeze in food theories, because I think that's interesting. Really quickly, what are some of the signature dishes and types of food that we've seen for some of the species and cultures? And what have you guys noticed that ties into biology as far as preferences?
Sylphids eating the bodies they inhabit is incredibly interesting and also creepy when you consider that they used to have live hosts. It's like, wow.
Yeah, how did you feed a sylphid when the host was alive? Like, did they have to exit the body and eat? Or can they attach to the stomach and that's good enough? What do they eat if you're alive?
I have to wonder if they absorb nutrients that the host eats themselves.
Maybe that's it. All right, we've got referring to the last question with Wondrous Fair and the witches' brews and so on. Oshi has a reply about the Wiskeria's stew being a spell. She has a cauldron and she rhymes. I'm not reading that bit. Voila, Powerpuff Girls. Yes, magic is partially magical, so maybe Wondrous Fair is a way around some of that. Okay, we have some responses to food preferences. Shining Spanner says that gnolls love bloody meat, Drake's like overcooked meat, and we see that with the hamburger specifically. Yes, we've seen people riff off of Erin's foods and sort of make them culturally relevant, which is a great point.
Well done hamburgers are a tragedy, but I'm sure Drake's love them.
Kalmia says sylphids can snack on the body they inhabit, and Shining Spanner replies to that with Ask Okasha. Yeah, we don't know what happens to the live bodies. We know that the brains apparently taste good, which is disturbing, but okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, you got it.
Yeah, Soul Scriber says that they thought Sylphids got energy by absorbing through the blood. So that's also fair. They do have a lot of tendrils in there, so that's sort of like getting nutrients from what the host eats.
Yeah, Shining Spanner says osmosis for days. Yeah, that sounds possibly right.
Yep. Oshi says that that's what Mr. What's-His-Face is, but what's the professor but a male witch who summoned the creatures in a cauldron? Huh. Oh, he's talking about the Powerpuff Girls still.
Yeah. Kalmia says, it's been a while, but I thought one of them mentioned why their host corpse didn't have a brain anymore. Yeah, they ate it. Ashok says, true, it would be like a real-life parasite stealing nutrients from your bloodstream and digestive tract. Yeah, I think this makes the most sense. We have seen that, like, the minds without the bodies can eat other food if they want to. And I have no idea what tastes better. I mean, we know that Okasha has food preferences. So whether that's just the taste buds or what she gets out of it, the sylphids do have food preferences, which is interesting. Alright, Shining Spanner says, I maintain sylphids are a sentient nervous system. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about drakes and gnolls and their meat preferences, and also sylphids. So let's hop over to slightly more theoretical Drathian food. We've seen a couple characters, one in Pomley and one Israel, I think, in Liscor from Drath. What do we think that they eat? We know that Lassica serves a rice, seaweed, and fish dish that closely resembles sushi, and that she says is traditional fare for Doulahans and Drathians. And we also know that in Boleros, Ken is served a meal comprised of rice and other appetizers. And he notes that the table setting specifically had chopsticks and, quote, distinct traces from Japan. Why might Dullahans and Drathians have such similar food traditions?
Okay, so Shining Spanner had something to say?
Yeah. Dullahans, from what we've seen, seem to be very, what's the word? Conscious of etiquette, which is quite a Japanese trait, and they seem to be leaning towards that with letting the highest ranked person go first, or all that kind of things. Drath, from what we've seen from the Dalquin games, etc., use a variant of kanji or something related to that. And as somebody has brought up, they are both navally based societies, or at least the Dullahans we've seen thus far with the the Iron Vanguard Company. So it's not incompatible that you'd be able to do it that way, because like making cultures out of nothing's hard. You got to draw from somewhere.
Yeah, there does seem to be an interesting connection between Japan in terms of culture, but mainland China in terms of language with Drath.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that there's a dish that people specifically relate to both cultures. So, Solo Scriber says, my understanding was that the Iron Vanguard, the Dullahans, are known for their naval prowess. Yes, so maybe they trade more. Yes, Yash Ketchum has a theory that maybe Beleros and Drath were geographically close before the world became flat. It could be interesting. And Pat says, we know the Iron Vanguard has some ties to Drath. Both don't send any soldiers to rear, which also indicates potential close ties with demons. Yeah, what do demons eat? There you go. That's a question.
Yeah, they have some ties to Drath themselves, don't they? I thought they were at least neutral with the Dullahans as well.
I haven't gotten the impression that the demons care too much about what's going on the other continents. They do trade. We know they trade with pirates because Mr. Strongheart has said he's met them. So
Yeah.
I would assume naval nations and stuff do trade with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Edge Dancer observed that Dullahans and Drathians regularly trade, and they're both naval powers. That was what I was thinking of as too when I originally read this question earlier. So it may just be cultural interchange because they move a lot in the same circles.
Okay. Have we seen any specific eating utensils according to culture? This is from Yash Ketchum. Spoons and knives, chopsticks, but I don't recall anything species related. I think we know that drakes have some finger foods. That's like a snack. I think gnolls do meat wraps and kebabs and stuff a lot, but they also have finger foods. So, I don't know. I don't think we've seen any, like, really unique utensils. Okay. We're basically at an hour, so I'm going to squeak in one or two food theories questions, and then we're probably going to just cover the rest of it in free discussion, guys. So, Action Kermit, I'm going to kick one off, but if you want to have a specific question you want to cover, just let's do that one next, okay?
Sure.
So here's a question, guys. Does nutrition matter in InWorld? For example, have we seen any vitamin deficiencies and do healing potions overcome them? Nutrient deficiencies like that cause things like scurvy, anemia. Have we seen any evidence that those exist? And if they do we think that leveling overcomes those issues as it makes your body stronger?
Yeah, I mean, I could absolutely see that. Like the Sleepy Queen had sleeping sickness when she was a child, and then gained her ability to store hours of rest from overcoming that. So there's probably something similar in terms of overcoming malnutrition that peasant classes could get. Shining Spanner, you got a question?
Yeah, no, just a comment on what you were saying. Yeah, the peasants, we've been told, as you say, don't need as much food and will survive harsher conditions. Also, looking at Rhyme specifically, like the country, they were running out of food, which does say that they might have had healing potions or whatever, but that's not going to do the same as a good meal, and that's why Edict of Bloom come into things. And we also see from Pommel that not Pommel, sorry, what's it called? The monk's place just been brought in. You know, Vizier loving scorpions. Not Sotheim. Yeah, the monks of Sotheim. That specific vows can change what food you take, or you're allowed to eat. Sorry, which is an interesting thing to look into, because from what they were eating, it didn't seem like they were getting the full nutritional supplements they need. And Calrews did gain that, but also Luan, when he was adrift at sea, got the converting mana into nutrients skill. So there's a few ways you could go about it.
Related to that, Calmia says that Calrews gained efficient metabolism as a prisoner. So, okay, so there is something there. Do we have any more thoughts on this question, guys? Or do you want to move on to a different food theory?
Yep. So I had a question that I put into this collection. It was number 19. So this is something that's been running around in my head for a while. Cornucopia skills have been contrasted with miraculous food creation like manna from heaven, because cornucopia skills do not create food that supplies real nutrition. You know, it's not actual food. It's almost like an illusion that you can taste. So do you think that there are chefs who take advantage of that to make fattening or sweet dishes that can still be enjoyed but vanish before digesting it, so your guest doesn't put on weight? You know, you could make like cake for days and it wouldn't even fill someone. So, you know, instead of being a drawback, it would be an advantage that way. Let's see. Ashok was just asking, what examples of cornucopia skills have we seen already? I don't actually know if we've seen one. So, you know, I've heard them mentioned as a contrast to what Pawn does, and later what the people of Zykal do. But I don't know if we've actually seen one on screen yet. Shining Spanner, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, to be honest. You could definitely make fattening sweet dishes a cornucopia skill. If it doesn't give you any actual nutrition, if it does fill your belly, there's a couple of practical uses for it. In terms of, say you've got an army or whatever, and you're marching and you've got a cornucopia skill, you could just feed them the bare minimum vitamin supplements to get along, which if any of you have read The Martian, the book, he literally survives off multivitamins and potatoes. But I don't know if anyone here has ever gone to bed hungry. I certainly have in the past. I would love a cornucopia skill just not to feel that pain in the stomach. And that's why you drink a lot of water, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good skill, even if it does have practical uses, though they may be limited. I think pawn skills definitely gonna come into play later.
So Yash Ketchum was just asking who's the Jenny who drives the carriage. They make food from their body as well.
Elle says that that's Carsey, and I believe that, yeah, that's correct. Yash Ketchum says yes, her people are eating her every time they order food, and not in the pleasant way. Yeah. I think we see somebody say on the page that after like a 3-day journey in the unmarked coach, they like almost passed out when they left. Like, it's not actually nutritious. It's just you feel like you're eating until you leave, and then you discover that you actually haven't eaten in days. We've seen the opposite actually too at the Genie's Spoon, the restaurant in Israel. The chef there has some type of skill that sort of lets people store food. Like, they can eat, and then they leave, and they don't have to eat for like 4 days. It's like the perfect Thanksgiving Day skill.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so Shining Spanner says that food doesn't bring allergies too. Fieri could eat garlic from the unmarked coach, and that assassin could eat prawns even though they were allergic.
Okay. What else do we want to cover before we wrap it up? Oshi wanted us to ask about what do you guys want to see? We've discussed maybe wanting some new utensils. Like, we want to see a deeper dive into foods and in-world. What do we think we're missing? What do we love about how Pirate discusses food?
Speaking for myself, I love the whole process of figuring out how to make it. That's a whole adventure in itself. Ashok was saying more Erin Wondrous fan of training, which I absolutely agree with.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the scenes that discuss like some specific cultural dishes or improvisation by certain groups. Like, I thought the Peter Goat pancakes were pretty fun with the goblins, and just as they're always having to improvise with whatever they have on hand. That was a fun scene.
Huh. Shining Spanner says haggis.
Yeah, I'd like to see more Earthers with non-American dishes. I know we have a few, but or a side tangent question potentially could be what could somebody make like that would signal people that you were on a certain continent, sort of like everybody knows it's an Earther when they hear that there's gelato or ice cream has been invented. Like, what are some other cultural foods that would be like, somebody from Russia is over here, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Shining Spanner says that Imani is leading the charge with new foods and love the cooking classes. Yeah, that's great. I'm not sure what. Oh, borscht, right? Yeah, that's like the Russian food, isn't it?
We have seen, I think Ryoka knows a recipe or something for borscht, and it like makes one appearance at the Wandering Inn. May not be real borscht. Kalmia says anything with a brand name, even if it isn't the actual thing, could be used to signal Earthers, like McDonald's French fries, or yeah, you could do that. Like your pop-up stall with a certain name.
Shining Spanner also says that stroganoff, that dish is.
Okay, we have a couple more comments, and then I think that's going to be it for our section of the recorded discussion.
Kamiya try to recreate in real life.
Yeah, I think Kamiya has taken a crack at the Shadow Loaf, so yeah, that would be very fun.
I was just reminded of that Skyrim game. They had that Potage Magnifique from the Dark Brotherhood quest line that was absolutely terrible if you tried to make anything like it, even though it came from a supposed master chef. Yeah, Wandering Inn is better about using recipes that you can actually make.
Yes.
Nobody says that one food scene that they like is Fedorhab asking is, guess what food would you like to eat? And then they'll have it made. Just need to make more requests, and he wonders what Erin would ask.
Yeah, I think we've seen 2 scenes now where chefs have some kind of skill where they can read it, because we've seen something similar with the Viscount and Alien Damas. Those chefs can sort of whip up stuff that really fits the person they're making food for. Shining Spanner says, I want to know that skill. Maybe it's a variation of what Foliana does, kind of. They just look at you and they know what your favorite food is. Maybe that's how she does it. She looks at them, she knows what their favorite food is, and then when she eats it, the second part of the skill kicks in. Alright, looks like we've got one last comment, and then I'm going to end the recorded discussion, and we can go to free discussion.
Yeah, Kamiya says that Rufel could do something similar with beverage orders.
Yeah. Alright, I think we've covered a lot on Food in the Wandering Inn. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I hope y'all had a good time. I know I did. And we will have another discussion on something else soon. This is Kylara here with Action Kermit to discuss Food in the Wandering Inn. Thanks everyone for coming.